Welcome back, all you space lovers. It's craziness of the internet here, and we are back again with another informational video in EVE Online. Now today, you guys, in this video we will be discussing and showing you guys the 4 basic playstyles in PvP in EVE Online. Yes, there is more playstyles that can be activated, but these are the 4 most concurrent and most basic playstyles in PvP that you will come across. Now when it comes to teaching you guys these 4 basic playstyles, it does take a lot of information, and I wish I could make these videos shorter for you guys, but sometimes when it comes to teaching you guys what there is to know, I do have to make these videos into 2 parts or 3. So today this one will be a 2-part video series, and in the first video, you guys, we will be discussing the HP buff style ship from the Amar. Now this style of a ship will teach you how to understand that your longevity is your hit points and that you should not be worrying about anything else except for locking down your opponent and trying to manually pilot on the screen to get those good critical hits. And the second playstyle that we'll be looking at today, you guys, is the Scram Kiter. Now this will utilize your enemy's max range against them, making sure to use your agility and your speed combined with the power of your dual webs and scram to pin and lock your enemy and control the battlefield. Alright, you guys, now when it comes to the Scram Kiting style of EVE Online gameplay, one of the best and easiest ships to do this with when you want to practice is the Slasher. Now this thing is super cheap and you can utilize it in 2 different ways, and remember, your goal here is to teach yourself these tactics. It is not about winning or losing. Your main goal and feature here should be to utilize each one of these builds and playstyles to teach yourself what it's like in PvP and what it's like to face off as one of these playstyles or against it. So this one right here, we have the Scram Kiter. Now if you guys do not know, in EVE Online you have brawling style DPS players, and you have mid-range damage DPS players, and you have long-range damage DPS players. Now when it comes to the highest DPS output in the game, you have to go up close and personal, and to nullify this you have what they call Scram Kite, because in EVE Online the word kiting references to long-range agility and speed style gameplay. So what that is you're using your speed and your long-range weapons to apply all of your damage and outpace your enemy so that they can never catch you, thus allowing you to obtain the kills. Now when it comes to brawling, you do usually need a scram web and an afterburner, or a scram web and a micro warp drive engine. So combining the need for the scram and the ability to apply agility and speed as a kiter, you have a hybrid moment of PvP in EVE Online, and that is called the Scram Kiter. Now there is many ships in the game that can utilize this style of gameplay to its fullest, but when you are teaching yourself, you want to use this one right here, as it doesn't cost that much and it does allow you to apply 2 stasis webifiers to your target and gives you a good amount of sustainability with a small ancillary armor repair too, and making all of your tanks structure tanks so that you can have mass bleed effects if you are being heavily volleyed, as usually when you are a Minmatar Republic ship, as they have the best agility and speed out of all of the ships and classes in the game. So if you do utilize agility and speed, which a Scram Kiter does, then it is best to do it in a Minmatar vessel or a hybrid pirate faction ship that does utilize the skills of Minmatar as well. Now the first things that you guys do want to understand when it does come to kiting is that you want to stay around 7,500 to 11 kilometers from your opponent, as this will keep you out of the mid-range high DPS modes and out of the long-range ammo such as Null from the heavy DPS style ships. And I can give you guys a quick example of what that would look like right now. Okay, so now that you guys see what I mean by staying out of the ranges of the selected ammo type, using your agility and the power to lock down your opponent with 2 of the webifiers and the scram, making their velocity almost nothing, and even if they are afterburner and scram and webifire against you, you still do have that extra webifier and the bonus agility from the Minmatar race to get away and peel from them and still apply your DPS, and possibly allowing you to outpace your opponent. Now when it does come to say weapons such as artillery, or say long range weapons such as Galente railguns or the Amar lasers, you would want to get to the preferred range and then begin to use your orbiting agility around them, making it it harder for them to track you. Even with the Minmatar artillery from an enemy pilot, you would want to do that also as well. And let me give you guys a quick example of what that would look like so that you guys can see on the screen what it says for yourselves. All right, let's go. All right, you guys, so you can see right here that we have started in what you would say the button position, or if you were to slide a plex or land on one another, so you are up close. And you can see that when you are engaging things like a destroyer over a frigate, you can have the opportunity to lock them faster. So remember that the first thing you should be doing when you are locking a destroyer is immediately getting your speed up. Now, one of the first things that you guys need to take note is when you are a scram kiter or anything that is utilizing range control, you need to make sure to go over here, you guys, where it says keep at range and your orbit, and you need to set those to the ranges that you would use as your ship design. So as an example right here, you guys, if you are the style of player that does keep at range, approach, and orbit, yes, manually piloting on the screen will allow you to get other hits, but if you are a sustainable ship and you can, then these buttons are as viable as manual piloting on the screen as long as you set them up correctly. So what I mean by that is if you guys look at the orbit here, how it says 4,000, if I go ahead and click orbit on my opponent here and I turn my engine on, you will see that with the speed of the engine and the orbit of 4,000 that we will exceed 4,000 meters, which is 4 kilometers. So I will just let this set into an orbit right here so that you guys can see, understand it for yourself here, that when it does stabilize out, it looks to be around 600 to 800 meters with your afterburner on above 4,000. So if you guys were situated around something like blasters or something like that and you needed to go above 7,500, then you know to yourself that orbiting at 8,000 will take you around 8,700, which will be out of null range. Any gun weapon based system in EVE Online, the best hits that you will get on your opponents is when you either have them directly in front of you or directly behind you. So when it comes to a scram kiter, if you are able to get beyond the range of their weapon systems and you know that you can lock them down and you do not need to mess with the application of their tracking of the weapon systems, then you must utilize where a scram kiter will come in best, and that is making sure that your range is always above the fall off range that their weapon systems can apply. All right, to show you guys what I mean right now is I'm going to be shot by some null weapon systems. So you guys can see that at stable, I am being hit and it is glancing off. So you guys can see right here that if I turn my engine on, I start getting my orbit in. You can see that the weapons will start missing as I am now messing with the tracking system of the weapons. Now here's where the scram kiters come into play as powerful mid-range control ships. Is once you utilize the power of the scram and the dual web, then it is almost impossible for any basic weapon systems to track you. Now what I want you guys to understand right here is when you do apply the best DPS for the scram kiter, you do want to keep at range. So I'm going to completely stop my engine right now and you guys will see that I will again start being hit by the enemy's weapon systems. Now here is the best way to utilize a scram kiter. You want to make sure to keep at range. Now in blasters with long range ammunition, you guys, the best range is around 7,500 without the ability of being boosted from the ship's skills or having a module that will give you an increased range. We're going to go ahead and set this 8155 just above the range that would be needed for her to apply. Now that I am out of scram kiting range and the enemy is trying to approach me, I will be able to hold them right at bay here and they will not be able to apply as the weapon starts coming in. That no matter what, I will keep them at bay here, and utilizing my barrage ammunition, I will now be able to start applying and there is nothing that they can do because I will have them fully pinned down. Now in this situation, you guys, even if my opponent has a web, I still outmaneuver them with the power and the agility of the Minmatar race. Okay, now that you guys understand what it is like to face the Galente style weapons in a scram kiter, I want to show you guys now what it is like to face off against the range and the mid power of the Amar vessels and laser system. So you guys can see that it does apply and will keep applying to me even when I try to use my scram kite tactics and keep at range, because the Amar faction is one of the most powerful mid and long range brawling factions. So no matter what I do and what range I get to, it will still be able to apply to me. Yeah, I am at max null range now. The lasers still do hit me clean. Now here's where the Amarr have an issue and why they are the best fleet formation faction in the game, as they do best when they utilize the power of a friend or have the power of another ship to help them, because they do have a missing mid slot and do need the power of a friend to be able to either apply a web and a scram. So to counter-react the powerful range of the weapon systems of the Amarr lasers, you do need to make sure that you are able to outspeed the tracking, as the Amarr weapon systems are vulnerable to tracking the enemy. So if you guys go like this and utilize the exact same tactic, but now we want to orbit our opponent, we're going to orbit at 7,500, you guys, and you will see that once she starts to turn on that laser system, it will begin to start struggling to apply to us once we start to get our velocity up. The laser system is missing me, and once in a while it will apply, and that is because I'm at the mid range for the Amarr. Now, to understand the laser systems, to make sure that it doesn't apply to me at all, you do want to get close to it. So if I am orbiting at around 500 or 1000, super close, it should have an incredible time even hitting me a few shots. I'm going to get in here into this tight orbit right now, and the first one has missed me completely, and the second one has missed me as well, and there goes the third, there's the fourth, there is the fifth. So now we are under their weapon systems and they will never be able to apply. So that is how you guys counter react the Amarr weapon systems in the Scram Kiter or in any vessel in general. Do take into account that the Amarr also has the ability to switch through ammunition on the fly and possibly even start to get grazing hits. As you can see right now, there is a white laser which allows the Amarr to have better tracking over the long range ammunition, but the agility and the speed of the Minmatar will allow you to always get that nice curvature in there and allow the enemy to misfire. So that right there is super powerful, and do not forget it, you guys. Now the same effect will apply with the Minmatar weapons, but you guys have to make sure that you must be close to the Minmatar weapon systems when it comes to 200mm weapons. If it's 150s, prepare to brawl and do orbit at some range. If they are 125s, prepare to orbit at some type of range, as those are the brawling weapons for the Minmatar. The 200s, yes, they will give you a higher DPS on your ship fitting, but in actual fact, they will miss a lot of times up close against other frigates and things like that, because they are the mid-long range weapon system, and the 125s and the 150s are much better for brawling. Now that you can see how to utilize and use the basic tactics when it comes to the Scram Kiter, and knowing how to lock down any brawler and any mid-range control brawl style ship as well. Alright, now we're going to get into another one of the basic PvP training ships that you should be using for one of the playstyles. Let's get into that one now. Alright, you guys, when it comes to understanding what it is like to be a buffer style ship in PvP in EVE Online, you do want to stick to the Amarr class vessel, as it will be the cheapest to do this in, and it will give you the most bang for your buck, as this ship design does produce over 20,000 EHP if only you use Tech 2 armor pump rigs, and in this one we are only using the armor pump ones, as remember you guys, these are training ships. They are to teach you and to get you to understand some of the combat playstyles in EVE Online and make yourself a better PvPer while doing so. So once you understand that you don't have to rely on anything to do with cap management, and that you do not have to rely on repairing yourself, and your only goal here is to rely on manually piloting on the screen to make sure that you can lock down your opponent if they don't have a micro warp drive engine and you are both in an afterburner sequence. You will have to manually pilot on the screen to be able to track your opponent best. Remember you guys, the Amarr do work best at mid and long range control, so making sure that you are at a decent distance from your opponent when you straighten out will give you the chance to land critical strikes with the Amarr laser weapon systems. Now why you have to manually pilot is you do lose the ability of a web of fire when you are solo, as the Amarr are best in fleet formation. So if your enemy opponent does have a web of fire on you, you are going to have to manually pilot on the screen to be able to make your weapons track better for hits. And if you are having this problem, make sure to switch your heavy DPS ammunition, which is the conflict to the Imperial Navy multi-frequency, which will help you track even better. And don't forget, you guys, to remind yourself that this isn't about winning and it is not about losing. It is about going out onto the battlefield and teaching yourself to understand how to face and how to be one of these playstyles in EVE Online. So I'll show you guys real fast what it looks like to have to manually pilot on your screen to make sure to get hits against your opponent, especially if they are orbiting you and have you webbed down. And it does become a battle of skill versus manual pilot more than a battle of attrition versus cap or HP when you are against another ship that is afterburner and warp scram fit, and that is all they have, same as you. It literally becomes a dogfight of manual skill because he who can land their weapon best wins. Let me show you guys what that's like right now. So when it comes to Amar style vessels and the weapon systems and teaching yourself how to manually pilot on the screen to be able to track and get better hits on your opponent, then this is the best ship to do it in. So I want you guys to understand that when you are scram and web down, even if you have an afterburner, because the Amar vessels do rely heavily on armor HP, which is plates and mass, thus they do get reduced velocity and speed. So one of their weaknesses is not having a webifier, so they do have powerful low slots as the Amar faction, but they do get a reduced mid slot and do need the utility of a friend or an ally to help pin them down with scram and web. So I do want you guys to see what I mean right here when I am web down versus them. Now my friend here is in a destroyer, but remember, you guys will be doing this best with frigate on frigate. Now you guys will see what I mean when I am web down versus them, even though I have an afterburner and the scram will not really affect me. But when you do have bonus to your mass and you must manually pilot on the screen, especially against Amar, the webifier does cause the Amar lasers a lot of issues because they do rely heavily on tracking. So let me show you guys that right now. Alright, so you can see my opponent right there in front of me. Now remember, you guys, when they do have a stasis webifier applied to you, like she has applied to me right now, and they do begin to apply their speed and velocity against your weapon systems, you will see that you soon begin to have a problem with tracking. You can see right here, I am hitting her pretty good right now. But as they start to increase their speed, it does start to become hard for me to track them as a lasers based vessel system. As you guys can see right there, now my laser system has begun to completely miss its target and I can't track her anymore. Now this is where manual piloting on the screen, yes, out of chance and luck every once in a while when they do brace in front of you or behind you, the lasers can track, because any weapon system does track the best when they are behind and in front. So do take that into consideration and make sure you take that and write that down 100% into your notes. So to counter react what is happening, we now have to battle the webifier with our afterburner and manually pilot on the screen. So you guys can double click or use the keyboard. Double clicking is the fastest way. As I set myself towards my opponent, you guys, you can see that I need to cut them off and start tracking them with my laser systems. As I set myself here, you guys, towards my opponent, make sure that you always try to keep your weapon systems pointed directly at her. Now if they are peeling behind you like this and you can do a quick curve like that, you will miss a few times sometimes when you do it, but it usually can track them nose to tail. So you can see that I am getting a few hits in there like that. Now if I curve back around, I will start to track her some more, as I want to hit her from behind to get the best tracking hits. Now here is where manual piloting on the screen versus agility gets very interesting in EVE Online, as the highest based agility ships will do this best, but most players will always go in a straight line or in a circle. But you guys forget that you are in space, so there is no direct path. So if you want to counter react somebody orbiting you, then the best counter reaction to it is to either go straight up and they should get better hits. As you can see right there, I have hit 3 out of 5 on that one, and then dive back down when you can see that their orbit is trying to protect against you. Now when you do this in bigger mass ships, you can counter react sometimes the agility of another player, so they may be faster than you and have the nano and have the align time, but you are sadly able to abuse their own agility against them. Remember, you guys, that you are a heavily buffed armor ship, so you do have incredible amounts of hit points, and you should should not be worrying about your survivability. You should only be focused on directly manually piloting your ship and getting those hits that's needed. Okay, now that you guys see how that utilizes itself, the other aspect that you want to teach yourself when it comes to this ship is understanding the Amarr brawl. When you understand the Amarr brawl, you do understand that they will, if you have control of the field, outpace and outproduce the Gallente faction. Even though the Gallente faction will produce more DPS, most of the small weapon systems, especially using the void ammunition, will be reduced to about a range of 3500, where the standard range of configuration ammunition for the Amarr will be above 4000, and if you switch to Imperial Navy, you should be around 5000, and that is just using the Gatling pulse lasers, and those are the lowest range, fastest shooting weapon systems from the Amarr. So if you do use the small focus pulse laser, it gets even further, and this is why they are the mid-range control brawlers. Now that you guys have seen both of those training tactics and understand to yourself that if we do simulate this ship right here, you can see that it is under the 20,000 EHP mark, which is incredibly strong, as most of the frigates that you come across will be around 6,000 to 8,000, maybe 10,000 if they are like super tanks. So you pretty much are almost the tank of a cruiser, which when it comes to small weapon systems becomes extremely powerful. And you guys, if we do add the configuration ammunition, which is the highest DPS ammunition that we can add in, we do get 137.3 DPS. The average amount of DPS output that you do want from any ship is between 130 to 160 DPS. You don't want to go any lower than 130, otherwise you will need a friend to break some of the basic single repping active builds that you will come across. So it is viable in PvP, and we did create this thing, you guys, a very long time ago to be a training ship, and it hilariously over time has become, because it has such a massive tank, a viable use in the factional warfare zones. And you guys can also utilize a different weapon system which will give you even more tank, because the Amarr weapon systems do have godly mid-range control, but they sadly do take more power. So if you do have power issues and you have the skills, you can use the build like this. Alright, now this one right here, you guys, is the exact same design when utilizing the playstyle and the HP buff skill that it does have. But if you are having power grid issues and things like that, and you do have the skills to use the Minmatar weapons, then you can utilize it like this and switch your Amarr laser weapons to the Minmatar ones, which will also free up a rig slot for yourself, allowing you to add even more HP buff amount. Alright, now that you guys see two of the most basic PvP tactics and styles in EVE Online, and I do hope to see you guys out utilizing them on the battlefield. And remember, you guys, that it is not about winning or losing in these ships. Yes, you can win and achieve victories with them, but it is best to utilize it to teach yourself what you should and shouldn't be doing on the battlefield. I do hope you guys are staying safe out there. Please do like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.